All right, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience. We're just having a little bit of technical issues on our end, but hello and welcome to the Bat Chat. My name is Linda Basor. I'm the development coordinator at Bat Conservation International, and we're so glad that you've joined us for Fragile Flyers, Preserving Bat Habitats in Antioquia's Wilderness. So you can pop into the chat on whatever platform you're watching from and let us know where in the world you're watching from. A little side note, if you're on Zoom and you'd like subtitles while you watch the webinar, you can click on show captions at the bottom of your screen. If you don't see that option, you can click on the more link with the three dots. Side note though, they are computer generated captions, so you may have to do some, translations of your own. So speaking with us today is Regional Director of Latin America and Caribbean Initiatives, Dr. Melky Gamba Rios. Melky is part of our Endangered Species Initiatives team, and he's responsible for identifying priority areas for the team to focus and work with in-country partners to co-develop effective strategies to protect and recover endangered bat species, populations, and habitats. Melky has been working in bat ecology and conservation for over 20 years. Originally from Colombia, Melky conducted most of his research work in Costa Rica and received his PhD from the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. So after the presentation, Melky will have time to answer the questions, which you can type in the Q&A box on Zoom, or type into the comments if you're watching on Facebook or another platform. We'll try to get to as many questions as possible. Okay, now that all of that's out of the way, thanks for joining us, Melky.
Hi, Linda. Thank you for the presentation. Hi, everyone. So this is going to be a really interesting presentation for me. As Linda mentioned, I'm originally from Colombia. So this project is very close to my heart. So really exciting for this initiative and the work that we can do and the impact that we can have in Colombia. But before talk about the work that we're doing there, let me share a little about how we work in the team. And in particular, I want to start that extinction is something that is happening, is constantly happening, and is something that we need to definitely work against it. The Christmas Island Pipistrellus was extinct in 2009, and this is a really point that we can, always never forget that these things are happening. So with more of that 37,000 species that are near, to threaten with extinction, we need to always continue working to avoid this. With bats, we have 23 species that are critically endangered right now. And at Bat Conservation International, we've been working in order to avoid and working against that. So right now we're working with 6 species. We're supporting another 3 species with partners around the world. And we know that there are other 5 species, 6 species that people are working on them constantly. So overall, right now, we can say that all the critically endangered species are working or being under some initiative to be protected and recovered. So once that we see and we know that all of these species have some support, we can focus on the next category under the USCN release, that is the endangered species. And we have over 85 species that they are under this category. 20% of them, we don't know nothing, about the population trend, but 74 of them, we know that they are decreasing, and Antioquian sanguine bat is one of them. So we are now trying to focus on these species, and there are several reasons why we are really interested to working with endangered species. One of them is because when we're working just with critical endangered species, they're really close to an extinction event. So the investment is going to be higher to start recover the population size. And also the time that required to recover one of those species is much longer, and the recovery potential is lower. It's going to be more difficult to recover one of those species. So we're working on endangered species. We're going to be a little more proactive the cost of protecting those species is going to be lower, and we increase the potential to recover those species on the long term. So this is one of the things that we, in the team, we're trying to focus right now on BCI. So with all of these species, more than 83, 85 species that are in danger, all of them need attention. But how we choose where we put our effort. So in general, we tend to assess the vulnerability, feasibility, and impact of that we can have on those species. So first, we evaluate if they really the level of vulnerability of each species, also the feasibility of intervening into these species, and what kind of impact we can have, not just on the bats, but also on the communities where we're working, because all of those are connected, and it's very important to evaluate those things. So that is the steps that we tend to follow each time that we decide where to work. In general, this is the portfolio that we are projecting for the next 5 years. And all of these countries are at different levels of the development of the initiatives. So we have all of these countries in Latin America, in Africa, in Asia. But today, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're going to focus on Colombia. So Colombia is a mega diverse country. There are more than 50,000 species described for Colombia, and 10% of all the planet biodiversity can found in Colombia. So at the level of birds, is the #1 country in the world with more species, is the second country in the world with more amphibians, third one reptiles, and #1 on orchids, and #4 on mammals. So of course, we're really interested in the mammals with the bats. And we have over 270 bat species in Colombia. 8 of them are endemic to the country. And one of them, of those endemic species, is the Antioquian sagwine bat. So what we know about these species is actually really little. We know that have a really small range distribution. We know that all the family, all the group is the insectivorous bats. And in general, that's all that we know about these species. We don't know exactly what they're eating. We don't know exactly where they distribute, what kind of habitat they're using. And especially, we don't know about the social structure. But in general, this genus, Sarcopteris, is a very, very interesting genus of bat. They have a really complex social structure. And the male in particular always saying that these guys are really romantic. The males is they can sing to the females. So the name of the group is sagwine bats. In general, they're going to have in the upper part of the wing, they're going to have a sac where they're going to have feces, urine, and hormones. And they're going to combine all of those in there. And they're going to start flying in front of the females and start singing and releasing all of these smells of pheromones in front of the females, and they're going to helping them to keep the group cohesion on the harem. So it's a very interesting social structure that these guys have, and just that is the first bats that we know that they're singing to the females. So that part of social in that group overall is very interesting, and it's going to be a shame if we lose a species that we don't know nothing yet, and that can have a really complex social structure. So definitely we need to work in order to avoid the extinction of these species. The other thing that in general we see on this group is that they have some lines on the back. That for the Antiochian sagwine bat is the exception. All the other bats have 2 lines in the back, and they're going to hang in either on the walls of entrance of caves or on trees. And it's very fun when you see them and how they camouflage. They usually, when they're green, they tend to move on a little bit on the tree, simulating like a leaf or dry leaf in there. So it's very interesting to see them how they camouflage on the environment. So let me share a little bit about what we know or the history about these species. This is a really recent new species that was described in 2001 from 2 localities in Antioquia in Colombia. And then for the last 15 years, there have been multiple efforts and expeditions to trying to find these species, and all of them have been unsuccessful. In 2016, there was at the UCN, there was changed the category for data deficiency to endangered based on the small range distribution that these species have. And they're very lucky that in 2020, the species was rediscovered by Dr. Solari in Colombia. And in 2023, we are launching this initiative to conserve the species. But actually, the reality is that we start working with all our Colombian partners in 2022. So let me tell you a little bit how we arrived to this point with the species. Um, Last year, we have the Latin American Bat Conference in Mexico, and Diana Cardona was from Quantico and the Conservation Program of Bats of Colombia, was doing a very interesting presentation on how we can use a new tool in Colombia that is called Habitat Banks for bat conservation. So I was present on this presentation and was very interesting and a very powerful tool. Later on, as Dr. Sergio Solari was presenting about the rediscovery of the species with a really small range distribution, and definitely was a perfect match. So we, with Dr. Sergio Estrada, we join efforts and start discussing what's the possibility to put all of those to these species and these habitat banks together in order to have a lasting conservation effort and recovery for these species. And for the last year, we've been working with them and multiple other collaborators in Colombia to design a strategy that led us to protect and recover these species in Colombia. So in general, let me share a little bit about the region that we're trying to protect. This is a karst corridor in Antioquia. There are more than 66 caves, and you can see all the triangles on the map in the center. And this is more than 133,000 hectares of land. And we know that there are around 55 bat species in this region. But one of the major threats for the region is mining for limestone and marble. And this is one of the pictures that I took in August on my last trip to Colombia. And we can see how they're extracting and they're destroying the mountain. And all of those mountains that you can see in that picture, they're going to be leveled. They're going to be destroyed in the next 10 to 15 years. That is the speed that they are processing and removing all of this limestone and marble in the area. So all of that landscape in a really short period of time is going to change. So a little of the trip, we were trying to capture and identify new sites for Psychopteris in the region. We were able to capture other beautiful species during that period, and we were trying to record in different sites. We were not lucky to capture any Psychopteris during that period of time, but we were able to record there and add two new sites, to two new localities to the two existing that we know for the species. So that was really exciting to know that we can protect other areas and we can start to working and expand the distribution of these species. So I talk about the habitat banks, and this is a new law in Colombia that was proposed in 2017 and 2018. The idea of all of this is put all the efforts and resources into one single strategy in one region. In Colombia, all the projects that are causing a negative environmental impact, they have to work in order to mitigate, avoid or minimize all of that impact. And at the end, they have to compensate for such impacts. So in general, they pay to the government and they're going to buy credits. So this credits is 1 hectare of land. And they have to, of course, depend on the size of impact, they have to buy multiple hectares. And all of this is each hectare they have to buy, or each credit that they have to buy, is for 30 years. So we have a long-term commitment for these habitats from the private companies. So that is excellent because we can ensure that all of those habitats that we identify within this range of these areas, they're going to be protected for a minimum of 30 years, and then they can be renewed. So that is perfect. A lot of these benefits are going directly to the landowners that they have using the land in different ways, but they still have some forests. So then we pay them, or the government is paying them directly to maintain that forest and actually recover and expand those forest areas that they have within their land. So the landowners are going to benefit for these efforts. Also, there are other social benefits that are within these initiatives that help the economy and the growth of those areas. And all the materials and rangers, all of those are going to be higher on the local community. So that definitely the community is going to be benefits when they come into this scheme of Habitat Bank. In general, and let me show you a little bit about how we're going to work with these species. So first, we need to develop a baselines of where the species is on all the corridor, and we're going to doing that by using the acoustics. And when the species was rediscovered in 2020, Dr. Solari and Laura, that is his student, they were able to capture and recording the echolocation calls of these species. And they have a very particular and unique echolocation call. So that is fantastic because now we can deploy a lot of passive acoustic recorders in all that cars corridor, and we can start to identify in which location we're locating these bats. Then we can start understanding the kind of habitat that they're using and extrapolate and trying to characterize those habitats and those ecosystem that species need. Once that we do that, we can start identifying who are the stakeholders, who is the landowners of those properties or those areas where all of those forests are located. And they're definitely working with the community and working with all of them to explain them how the habitat banks work, how they can benefit them, how they can receive an income every year for preserving the forest that they already have in their properties. And once that we talking with the community and we have the prioritization of which areas we need for the species, we present all of this to the government and we can create the habitat banks. So this is the scheme that we are planning to work for the next 2 to 3 years to identify and working with all the communities in Colombia to protect and expand and recover Sarcopteris antioquensis in the area. This is also, it's going to produce direct social benefits. We're going to hire, or we're hiring already 22 professionals that are involved in the project. This is excellent because we are developing the capacity that already exists in the country. There are excellent project professionals in there, and we're really excited to working with them. They have all the tools and all the expertise to evolve and develop this project. Additionally, more than 80 families are going to be benefits through the first phases of this project, within lodging, drivers, food, and technicians and guides that are going to help us in the multiple areas that we're visiting. And in the long term, once that the habitat banks are established, as I mentioned before, the landowners and all the families and communities where we are hiring rangers and we're hire and develop new strategies and small businesses to promote the economic development of those areas and those communities are going to be benefits in the long term. And in general, I want to share that right now, we have received these pictures this morning. We have the first trip of the team and the first area, deploying the acoustic and taking all the measurements and all the information needed to start to establish and start analyzing the habitat and ecosystem in the area. So I just received this morning, and we're already start working on the area. So in general, this is a quick review about the work that we're planning. As I mentioned before, we don't have any data yet. We're just starting right now. And overall, we don't know much about these species, but this is the information that we're trying to create, to try to generate to protect the species, and also provide opportunities to all the local research to start understanding more about the ecology and behavior of these species in order to protect them. So this is a quick review of how we're working with the species. And Linda, I don't know, you have questions right now.
Yeah, all right. Well, thank you so much for that presentation. So the one question we've gotten so far is you sort of answered it. You mostly answered it, but they had asked it at the very beginning of like, what can we do to stop the destruction of the local environments in Colombia, which is basically to try and invest in these habitat banks. Is that correct? You're muted.
Thank you. So the first part, as you mentioned, yeah, is going to working with the landowners to um, invite it to be part of this scheme of the habitat banks where they're going to receive a payment to protect the forest that already have. So this is going to be a direct benefits for those families and those landowners. As well, as part of this, we are going to working with the mining companies to trying to mitigate and inviting to make an investment on these areas and on these projects to be a more unified effort and have a bigger impact within the community and all those areas that we can preserve and recover the species.
Awesome. Okay. Um, Laura's asking, can you dive a little deeper into the benefits to the families and local community that would help with the bat monitoring?
Yeah, so of course we have the professionals, all the biologists and all the sociologists and anthropologists that are going to working on the project. So those are professionals that will benefit. And then we have, when we go to all of these communities, we hire local drivers. We hire, we tend to stay in houses or on local hostels or local hotels within those communities because we tend to provide some benefits for them. We're trying to hire local people to cook for the teams that are going to be in there. We're trying to always hire local guides. And when we need technicians and people that help us in the field, we're trying to find people within the community because we're looking for that they get involved and start learning about the species and the importance of what they have in their backyard. So we're trying to working very close with these communities because they need to take ownership of what they have. And I start to see some of the benefits of what nature and what all of these species can have with for them.
Okay. Richard is asking, how do you work with the companies who have permits to work in the area?
Yeah, in general, all of these companies tend to have um, some ways to mitigate or some plans to mitigate is demanding for them to do it. So we tend to take advantage of that need that they have to uh, protect some of the areas that they have. So they have large areas on their properties. They tend to explore some areas and we tend to convince and work with them and to protect some of the other areas. So this is going to be a lot of effort and a lot of and working with them. Each of these companies and the areas that they have is different. So it's going to be different approaches, but overall is trying to once focus the economic input into the habitat banks, and two, within the lands that already own or have the rights to explode, working with them and destinate to protect as much as possible of those lands.
Okay. Julie's asking, could you please talk more about the pheromones that are stored in the wing sacs?
Yeah, okay, those are very interesting. And they have a very particular smell within the species. We don't know exactly, as I mentioned before, we don't know sadly nothing about the Antiochian sagwine bats, but overall they accumulate these urines and these little feces and the pheromones that the body is producing into these wings, and as that they fly in front of the females. So the movement of the wings is releasing all of those pheromones, all those smells in front of the females, and they're going to maintain the group together. They're usually looking for a tree or a stone. If they're in the entrance of the cave, they're really grouped, multiple females around, in a small area. And the male is going to fly in front and is going to start moving the wings in front of each of the females and start singing. So it's a really interesting behavior to observe and see.
So Christian on Facebook is asking, do you have acoustic records of Sarcopteryx antioquensis?
Yes. So in 2020, when Dr. Solaris and his student were able to capture some individuals for first time after 20 years, they carry or they have some kind of a tent, and they released the bat inside. They were trying to recording the collocation calls, and they also at the end they make some release calls of the individuals. So we know exactly how the collocation, or we have the record of the collocation call of them, and they're very different from other Sarcopteryx and other insectivorous bats. So that we were really excited because we easily can ID these bats from all the recordings.
Great. Vanita is asking, do you have an estimate of the current population of the bats and what will change in habitat have on them over time?
Yeah, so the first question, we don't have any idea about the population size. Right now, we know, or that we have two new localities where we recorded just with acoustics, and 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 that's all in 2020. So all the previous efforts for the last 15 years to visit the two original localities where the bats were recorded or captured at the first time, they were unsuccessful. They were not able to capture, and in the moment, because they don't have any of the acoustics, they were not able to identify through the acoustics. So now that we have the acoustic part, we can start having a better idea where the bats are located and distributed within this Karst corridor, but we don't know exactly the population trend or the population at all of these species. And overall, over time, that we're expecting is first protecting what is already in there about the habitat and with the different landowners, and especially ones that we identify what kind of habitat or ecosystem they're looking for or they're using it. So this is going to be that we're going to be priority, and hopefully we can expand and help the species to continue increasing the range that they have.
Excellent. Okay. And Javier had asked, what is the next step in conservation, which is the current step is building these habitat banks. And I just wanted to share that if anyone listening is interested in supporting our efforts, we are currently fundraising to get this habitat bank off the ground. You can make a donation at batcon.org/donate/ASWB. I'll put that link in the chat box if anyone would like to copy and paste it. But yeah, anything you want to add to that answer, Melky?
Yeah, so after we for the next 3 years, we're expecting to create all the information and working with all the landowners and communities to build the habitat banks. And once that we do that and we have a work with the community, we expected that over time the habitat is going to improve in the next 20-30 years as the community start working into that direction. But also we expected that now that we have new localities identified through this process, we can start having a little more research and more information how we can help the bats in order to use these habitats and increase their population.
Okay. So Amy's asking, what other well-known species are this bat's closest relatives?
Uh, Now, other ones could be Sacopteris bilineata. That is where we know very well about these bats singing and all the information about the pheromones and 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 those were probably the most studied species within this group. Yeah, and then we're really excited about what kind of behaviors and what kind of social structure these bats are using and the sociality of these species. So sadly, yeah, as I mentioned before, we don't know nothing, and it's a shame to lose a species when we don't have any even the basic information about them. So we're really excited to see and understand better the general ecology and behavior of these species in the coming years.
Larry is asking, are these bats tree or cave dwelling?
Sorry?
Are these bats tree dwelling or cave dwelling? Where do
They
they
can be
roost?
actually they can be both. So in the case of the trees, they're going to be outside of the trees. Usually this group can be uh hanging and in the outside of the tree, usually under some branches, on that side of the tree. They trying to find areas that the color of their fur and the tree, they can be camouflage a little bit in that area. Each species within the family doing in a different way. We have other species that they hanging on a line that is Ranconicteris, and usually they prefer to hanging over rivers, over creeks. And in other members of this group, they can do at the entrance of the caves on the wall. They like it. They prefer to be on the outside or in the entrance. And the caves of these bats are using caves. We know that different species like different sections of the caves. So for this group, they prefer the entrance. So at this moment, we don't know what kind of roots they're using. So we're assuming that it's going to be either trees or one of at the entrance of these caves, that all of these cars corridor have hundreds of caves. So definitely it's going to be part of the process to explore and trying to identify the routes that they're using.
Yeah, on that same note, Larry asked a similar question of how is the karst corridor defined? By geology, what is karst?
Yeah, so it's in general, it's the kind of stone and formations that they have on the region, and they can be explored and used in for different mining purposes. So in general, it's the geology formation of of that area.
Okay. So George has a question, and he asks, in the Colombia Habitat Banking Program, is the area that must be conserved per project the same as the area destroyed? Or is there a required multiplier, such as 2 hectares preserved for each one destroyed? Or is it like 1 to 1? Or is there any sort of relation like that?
No, actually no, and the number of and the cost of that credits that these companies have to buy, it is changed depending of the area of the country, and is kind of a market that, in areas the land is more expensive and higher, the cost of those credits or those that credits that the companies have to pay for it are higher than in other areas where the land is lower. So it's not a precise cost and change between the different areas and how many companies are affecting that area. So it's a complex formula that is not give you a precise number for that, sadly.
No, interesting though. So like but the credits vary based on um the value of the land. So okay, got it. Um, Amy's asking, regarding the government payment programs, what other opportunities do the families give up or are competing with the program that may be more financially beneficial? Like, are there other commercial or financial opportunities that the families have to give up to support this program?
Yeah, so in general, we of the program don't expecting that the families leave anything. is we are working based on the forests or areas that we wanted for them to conserve within their properties. They can use those lands if they don't affecting those patches of forest of areas that they're going to be included into the habitat banks. But they can use it, for example, and the program improve or promote ecotourism. So they have a patch of forest on an area where a lot of birds and a lot of nice view that they can start promoting and creating an ecotourism activity within their own land. So they can continue exploring and using their land for farming or cattle, depending on what they have, and just protecting the forest area that they have. So it's not excluding, and they don't have to change their income or the way that they're doing their own business. It's just protecting what they have and receive a benefit from that. So I think that is crucial. All of this is thinking to also trying to find new ways for the community to receive an income and benefits. And as I mentioned before, the 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 Habitat Bank is also looking for to have rangers to protect those lands and helping to work with the landowners to, for example, in some cases, it's going to be need fences in if they have cattle, so the cattle don't go into the forest. So all of those materials and all of that workers are going to be always hired in the community, and the rangers are going to be coming to be part of the community all the time.
Okay, that's really cool. Kind of on that same note, Robin, sorry, had a question. Um, Within the local communities, is there much like anti-bat fear or yeah?
Yeah, I think it changed. Of course, they have a lot of the rural areas, they don't like bats, and especially when we have carols, we have issues in general with vampire bats. And just to remember, from the 1,400 species of bats that we have worldwide, only 3 species feed on blood. Two of one of them really feeding on mammals. Another one can feed on mammals and birds, and one is exclusive to birds. So the one that feed on mammals is the one that the common vampire bats that is causing more issues, and sometimes the other species pay a little the price for the effects of these vampire bats, especially on areas when they have cattle. So the community in some cases they don't like much, but it's as always the Colombian conservation bat program is doing an amazing and incredible work on those communities in order to share the benefits of bats and working with them in order to change all of those perspectives. And they've been working for years now on across Colombia, and they do and they definitely there are a lot of work to still to do, but they've been doing an incredible work of it over time.
Yeah. Javier and Stephen had some similar questions. Like, is there a possibility of reducing the amount of land the companies can have access to? Like, is it possible to make a national park to preserve the habitat? Is that an option?
Uh, that area I see a little challenging. Definitely we need to working a little more about on the uh, of the forests and areas that they are in there and who is owning those lands. But overall, sometimes that is not the best way. Usually it's better to working directly with the community and the landowners, because they're going to take ownership of the work and the value of their forest and the land. And I think that is going to last longer than just protected areas overall. So I think that that in that particular area where most of the land is probably on, I think that is the best approach for the area. So working definitely with the landowners and the communities so they can see the benefits, and they start continue or increasing the conservation and recovering a lot of those forests and lands.
Got it. Okay. Julie's got an interesting question. She's asked, have any media or entertainment celebrities from Colombia been contacted to support this project? Say Juanes or Shakira.
Oh, that is a good, yeah, I wish. So definitely, ones that we start the project and have a little more information, that is always a good alternative. And if you have the contacts and know them, please let us know. Definitely happy to reach out and trying to involve any of them into this kind of initiative. We need all the voices and faces talking about the value and importance of bats, not just in Colombia, but worldwide. So yeah, definitely looking forward to have any of them, supporting the work that all the Colombian team is doing and all the other teams across the world are doing.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. So George has a question. In Colombia, which entity is the mitigation banking broker that matches offset needs with landowner habitat offers? Is it a government agency or some other organization?
Is the government. So everything is go to the government. And we are working right now with a private company that was crucial on the development on the laws. So when they passed in 2018 and 2017, so we're working directly with them in partnership so they can help us navigate the government and approve these habitat banks. And this is going to be the first time that these habitat banks are focused on a bad species. So we're really excited for that perspective. That's really exciting as well. And definitely we're looking forward to working with the government, because at the same time, once that the government is involved, we see more possibilities for more efforts and input within the area.
We got two questions from Christian on Facebook. Um, are there species distribution models for the Antioquian sackwing bat, and where can one consult the calls of the species so they can potentially contribute with additional acoustic records?
Yeah. So the first question, we don't have it yet. This is part of the process. So as mentioned, this week, the first team is going out to deploy acoustic recorders. So for the next few months, we're going to visit in different areas on the Cars corridor, and we're going to start to identify where the body's occupancy of these different areas, and then we're going to start building the model with the kind of forests and habitat that we can find on those areas where we have occupancy, and building all of these models to start to extrapolate and try to identify the priority areas for the bats. And happy if you reach out, happy to put in contact with the Colombian team that have all the recordings, and we're really happy to receive any help.
Yeah. Let's see. Lissy had a great comment. She says she lives in El Poblado, and at night she has bats visiting some of her fruit bird feeders. Yeah, and are there places near Medellin that you were working in?
Not right now directly for our team, but it's exciting, and I think that it's very important that what you mentioned about the bats visiting the plants and feeders that you have at home. When we're talking about urban ecology, we sometimes forget the importance of this, of your backyard, what you have in your backyard. This is going to support a lot of birds, and it's going to support a lot of bats. And in many cities, that is the only thing that wildlife, birds and bats and insects have available for them to survive. So is critical that when we talking about our gardens in our homes, we tend to have always native plants that can support the local fauna. So it's incredible that you have that at home. And I hope that everyone trying to do something like that, because it's have a really deep impact on the ecology and the urban ecology, and on the species that they're surviving, trying to survive in urban areas.
Oh yeah. Grecia's asking, how many Antiochian sack-winged bats have we registered so far, or is that the next step in your work?
Yeah, so right now on the last trip, we were able to add two new sites where we recorded the bats, but we on the recorders, it's a little difficult to know a quantity per se of how many individuals are there. We just can overall record the activity, so that if the bats are present and the activity within that area. So we expect it to start identify where the bats are using the space, and hopefully on the future we can identify where they're roosting. And once that we identify where they're roosting, we can have a better idea of finding the roosts and trying to have a little more of the numbers of the population on those areas.
Got it. Okay. I think this will be our last question. Has there been presence of white nose or other diseases yet in Latin America, in Colombia, other than environmental threats from humans? Are there any other major threats that this area is facing?
Yeah, no, and we're really, and we hope that we never have white nose syndrome in Latin America, and overall because our bats they're not hibernating for in our region. That is definitely a reason that the bats are not get infected, and they're not go the disease not go out of United States right now. So we expected that we never have nothing like that, an external disease that is affecting our populations in the region. But overall, is one of the major factors is caused by humans, either deforestations or in general all the mining companies destroying that habitat.
Okay, well, thank you again, Melky. It's clear that this is a critical and very timely issue, and we need all the help we can get. If you'd like to support our efforts and help this project get off the ground, you can visit batcon.org/donate/ASWB. I posted the link in the comments as well. So thank you so much to the audience for joining us. Any final words for us, Melky?
No, I just mainly want to say thank you to everyone for coming today, and thank you for everyone for their support. Definitely, all the work that we're doing is thanks to all of those donations, all of that support that all of you are providing. And even if you cannot have any economic support, I love to know that there are people out there that love the bats and that continue spreading the word about the benefits that we have and the bats have for all of us. So I think that is so valuable. And so thank you for all of that.
Okay, folks. Well, that's all for now, and we will see you at the next Bat Chat.